So right here, right is the administration. No, it's right here. If you were to fly out this far, you would hit the administration level.
I've got mine anyway, something that you love so
That's
much
where
because I can
the
tell that you
direct.
love.
Once you go out these doors, you just follow the sidewalk until you get into a program. And that's what you're going to have. I'm going to leave here at 2:45. That'd be awesome. We'll be able to. Most of it's that we're just going to be brewing coffee and put this stuff. Awesome. Let's work on the sign. So what I'm going to do is mic one. Eric can be my hand. Now we can be mic two. You're here for prayer? Excellent. All right, I'm giving you, this is your mic. So you can put it in your pocket, and then it's already muted, and then our sound guy will turn you on. Or turn on the mic, I should say. Sorry.
I was on the Southwest flight one time, and the flight attendant said, a little light, with a little light, still sign, that'll turn on your light. The one with the flight attendant, if you turn that on, it's not going to turn on the flight attendant.
So you're mic two.
How are you? Yes, good to see you.
You too.
Yes.
This is Natarsha, who just, she's a host.
So that's what she yes, takes you right
You're
us for our DreamWeek event. I'm Dawn Martin, the director of the SoL Center, Source of Light Center, and we are co-hosting this event with Wendy, who is the director of ISAA, Interfaith San Antonio Alliance. We're so privileged to have all of you with us this afternoon for a time of storytelling. We have an amazing group of folks who are going to share part of their life, part of their faith with us today. And so it's a privilege that we're gathered here together. We will have a short reception afterwards in what we call the CE building. So when you head out, you'll go to your right, simply follow the sidewalk, and you'll end up in what's called the continuing education building. You'll see we'll have the doors open. So we hope that some of you can stay, maybe talk some more with some of our storytellers. That would be lovely. Just a few essentials so you know. We do have 2 bathrooms, one on either side of the building, always good to know. So they're in the alcove areas of each. And if necessary, we also have a bathroom back here. Again, it's been such an honor to work with Wendy on this. We had a somewhat smaller kind of a trial run of this a few months ago, and a test flight, and everyone who participated told us how meaningful it was. So we're very much looking forward. Thank you to all of our speakers. And Wendy, I'll let you say a little bit.
Well, thank you so much, Dawn, and the SoL Center and University Presbyterian Church. As director of Interfaith San Antonio Alliance, it is always a joy and privilege to gather people together for the goodwill of the community and to uplift each other. And that was the great good news from our fall event. How many people said, that was so uplifting. That just really made me feel good. And we need more of that in our world, right? Where we're holding each other up and making a difference because we care about each other, because that spark of faith in each of us draws us to the greater good. So on behalf of the SoL Center and Interfaith San Antonio Alliance, you are in good hands today with Reverend Natarsha Sanders. She, well, we use the term a test flight. She is your flight attendant today. And there's no one better. She is back by popular demand, and we, as you know, have a top flight group of storytellers. Natarsha?
Thank you so much. Y'all give them a hand. We are so grateful. Let me tell y'all something about Wendy and Dawn. So most of the time when people come together and they say stuff like, oh, we'll do it again, they don't do it. Have y'all ever had somebody who you really enjoy being around and they're like, let's meet again or let's do it again, and it doesn't happen? Tell the truth. That's happened, right? Okay, well, not with them. In October when we got together, everybody who was there said, let's do this again. And look at us today. In the first, yes, we are back here together for the sole purpose of listening. This is one of the things I've learned about storytelling, you all. All of our stories need a place to land. So we are taking flight today. The storytellers that you will hear that will come before you shortly are flying planes. And you, if you will, be the runway for their landing. We'll make a great team. So one of the things we ask in our stories when we get ready to tell them is, what do we want to say? How do we want to say it? And to whom do we want to speak? And all of the storytellers have decided that the story they will offer us today is what they want to say. This is the time that they want to say it. And you are the people to whom they want to say it. And there is no greater gift than to be able to listen to someone land their storied lives in our presence. So as they're before you today, we just want you to be able to listen deeply with all of who you are, awaken all of your senses. Everything within you is awake right now. Yes? And we want you to be curious. Okay? So any good listener, any good student is always prepared to ask a good question. Whether we are challenged by what we hear, whether what we hear kind of confirms what we've always known about humanity, or whether it just causes more confusion in us. A good listener will come up with a question to help them understand and process the information that they are receiving. So let's be curious. Can we agree to that? We're going to be curious and open to learning. Let's also show some respect to those who will stand before us for this moment in time, for the next 90 minutes, as you are situated with your feet placed firmly on the floor and your bottom supported by a sturdy chair. Come on, all chairs ain't sturdy, and they're not worthy to support our bottoms, but these are. Yes? So in this position, we get to suspend our judgments. We don't have to judge anything around us, anybody that's standing before us. We don't have to do that. Let's look for common ground. When we're talking, how can we relate to what we're hearing? When did this happen for us? When was a time that your faith was lifted? Has your faith been lifted? So look and listen for the common ground to which we all inhabit. Let's also be authentically welcoming in who we are. Yes? So there, like I said, there may be some things that you're just like, oh, okay. The authentic you allows those who need to hear it to hear it. So we're not interrupting anyone else's ability to listen. We're not interrupting their desire to hear. And we're not interrupting the storytellers' desire to speak their truths. And finally, you all, we get to own our experience today. You know that saying, you get out what you put into it? I promise you that we receive the stories from the place in which we're giving them. Have you ever listened to somebody talk and what they were saying brought tears to your eyes? It's because they were telling it from an open and vulnerable place. Have you ever listened to a child or an adult laugh and you just started laughing? You didn't even know why they were laughing. You just laughing. That's because their laughter, their emotion in that moment is infectious. So let us receive from the place at which our storytellers are giving, and they are giving of their whole self today. So let's receive with our whole self. Can we do that? Yes, we can. Okay, y'all, then we ready to take off. Make sure you got your mask on. Make sure you put on your own mask before you try to put Up first, you all. Up first, we have our wonderful, and so here's the deal. Did everybody get a sheet when you were walking in?
Yes.
So I'm not going to read their bios to you all. I want you to be able to read them for yourself, okay? Up first, we're going to have Miss Erica, and I'm excited. Miss Erica, come on, talk to us.
Okay. First of all, thank you all for participating in any DreamWeek event. Obviously, DreamWeek represents some of the best of San Antonio, where we can all come together and share our stories, regardless, really for the goal of unity and for the goal of getting to know our fellow San Antonians. And so it's a privilege to be here. My story of faith begins actually in scarcity. And so, as many of you know, I am a farm worker, born and raised in the Rio Grande Valley. Did that most of my life until I was able to go to college later. But along that path, I, like many others in Texas and in this country, faced poverty day in and day out. And in that scarcity, we didn't have a lot, but my grandmother, who was a migrant and came from Mexico in the 60s, she had faith behind her. Now, I'm going to pause there and tell you a little bit about my faith background because it is going to be relevant to my uplifting story. I was born a Mexican Catholic, which means a lot of shame, a lot of indigenous religious beliefs mixed in through the Mexican culture, but a lot and tons of food and camaraderie. And in that, growing up in the Rio Grande Valley, it became really apparent really early on that for me, that necessarily wasn't the way I wanted to live in and day out. Now, I carry all that with me because when I became a young adult and off to college I started to question like everyone else does. What is my faith? How do I think about faith? And so I became agnostic for a while, still believing in a spiritual higher power, but agnostic to a particular religion. Now my family and I, for the last really about 8 years, have called Colonial Hills Methodist Church, Chumsey, for those of you who don't know, our home church, though we volley and also like to visit other congregations throughout the city, regardless of their background, because we feel it's an important element to continue to understand and expose our own son to other faiths. So you could say that all that amalgamation really is a result of that scarcity at the very beginning, because the one thing my grandmother did teach us, even though she was rooted in her Catholic faith, was that all of us were human. And no matter what day it was, we would come home covered in dirt, we would come home smelling of onions or spinach or whatever it is we picked. She always started the meal with a prayer, just like I'm sure many families that you know or you yourselves do. And so my big uplifting story of faith comes during that time where I told you I questioned. And the time in my life where I came to realize that for me, faith really was more about my relationship with my God than trying to understand everyone else's relationship with theirs. And it was when I was a freshman at UT Austin, wonderful Longhorns up the street up there. I had gotten to college by myself. At the time, and I won't go into it, but my family had really gotten disjointed, and I had been taken away from my home, from my birth mother, through the court system. Long story there, but the point is that I was by myself. I was alone. And I had been felt abandoned by my mother. I felt abandoned by my extended family who didn't really intervene to help me. And so I was walking by myself, having landed my very first job that was not in the fields. And I was what they called a glorified assistant to some bigwig corporate lady that worked for Schlotzsky's. Any of you know Schlotzsky's restaurant? She was the creative director of Schlotzsky's, and their office used to be downtown Austin, back in the day when Austin still kind of was a smaller downtown. This was in the early 90s. And I remember feeling heavy and lonely because I would take that trek from UT through the Capitol, when you could still get in through the Capitol, and walk on the grounds, and walk all down straight Capitol Street to 4th Street, where the old Schlotzsky's Corporation was headed. And I would do that walk every day because I would go do my work study, do my classes, and work. But I was a first-generation student. I didn't have a family that went to college who couldn't guide me. I didn't even have a family at that point, right? And I remember feeling the heaviest weight of loneliness. And loneliness, as we all know, medically speaking, is a disease that we are now facing as a great society. But loneliness for the young is also one of the most horrible feelings you could ever wish upon them. Because as I look back, my life was ahead of me. I was at UT Austin. I was studying. I was starting. And yet I felt so alone and so desperate for connection. So desperate for love. So desperate for something to ground me. And I was walking down Congress Avenue with a Walkman. Y'all remember those? I had a Walkman, and I had a CD. It was a CD player, so it was a step up, sorry. And I had a CD player, and how many of you have heard of Phantom of the Opera? Right? There is a song in Phantom of the Opera, All I Ask of You. All I ask of you. And as I was walking, feeling the weight, as if nothing, I could never find love, I could never find security, I hear, say you'll love me every waking moment. And I knew that was God speaking to me. I knew as I listened and as I looked straight down an empty, beautiful, long, oddly enough empty at that time, street in the middle of bustling Austin. And yes, I'm going to throw this in because that's how it happened to me. The clouds broke and the light came down and shone on some of those magnificent buildings, and I was in the shade. And then I heard Sarah Brighton say you'll love me every waking moment. Right back to God. And as I listened to that beautiful song being sung back and forth, I realized this was the conversation God was having with me. Let me lift you from your solitude. Those are some of the lyrics. Say you'll stay with me every waking moment. Let me guide you. Words that as an 18-year-old who was desperate for connection got the answer to. This idea that you're not alone if you only let me go ahead and guide you. And I can tell you without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt, that that is one of the most meaningful things I have ever had in my life. Happened to me. Meaningful. Because to me, not only did it make me realize that secular things, quote unquote, could be so spiritual. And let's admit it to ourselves, music is spiritual regardless, right? The idea that in something so simple, a song I had heard over and over and over would suddenly be the answer to my yearning for connection and for, quite frankly, not feeling alone was something earth-shattering for me. After that moment, let me tell you what happened. Not only did I not realize I would never be alone, but I also realized that any time that I really needed my faith, really needed a higher power, my God, my version, they would always be there. And so when I would move on to Philadelphia later, to grad school, and felt the weight of confusion, I called upon that moment and that song. When I would be lost and think I would never find love, I would listen to that song. I got Ron out of it, so it worked out. When we lost our first child, and she was born and only lived 4 hours, I would listen to that song. When my son was born, and I didn't know how to express how I would be there for him, and how I wanted him to think about his relationship with God, whatever it is, as he grows and chooses, I play that song for him when I can't speak to him about it. And so forth, as you see, that one moment in time actually altered everything in me. And many times at work, people will ask me, why are you always in such a good mood? Why do you not ever see necessarily the negative in things? And it is because in my mind, I have let someone guide me and someone fill my solitude. And because it is my relationship and my coming to terms with my faith, I can only hope they have their own. But I do tell them to look for it because sometimes it doesn't happen the way that we expect. Sometimes it is a song you've heard 1,000,000 times. Sometimes it's a place you've driven by 1,000,000 times. And sometimes maybe it's just a kindness that you've experienced only once, and yet it shatters that veil. And so that is my faith story. And I know that we want to open it up to Q&A, so maybe it's a little shorter than the 7 minutes I was allotted, but I figured it would be a great way to start if any of you have questions as well. Now, before I round out that final story, I have to tell you this much. My grandmother's faith has always been unshattered. She doesn't understand much about the intricacies of faith in terms of the operational aspects. She doesn't understand anything else except for the fact that every day she wakes up and every day in the wind, she blesses us. She lives in the Rio Grande Valley. She's 99. And every morning, like clockwork, my aunts will tell me she gets up, she comes to the kitchen, she sits, she says a prayer, and she does this to the wind, and she pushes it out. And I can only assume that blessing is meant for me and for all our family members. But that's really my rock when it comes to understanding faith, is her. And her belief that there is just something bigger than us, and that she's carried that throughout her hard life, which has been so much harder than mine ever will be. And so to all of you here that have generations that depend on you, and have generations that you are going to at some point be the heads of, I have to tell you something. Never underestimate the power you have in the hearts of those that you've helped to raise or that you've helped to change. She has that impact on me even now through the wind every morning. So with that, thank you all for letting me share. And yeah, I'll open it for any questions you have.
Any questions for Miss Erica? You do have one? Yeah.
Yes. And this is a piece of advice I'm looking for. As
Okay.
someone who I was raised Presbyterian, had a feeling God has always been there with me. I was a Catholic for 25 years, raised my daughter's dad. My eldest daughter is a physician. Just, had a very, very bad experience. And my grandchildren are not being brought up in church other than, the Montessori school that they go to. And I'm at a real crossroads of I don't want my grandchildren growing up without the sense that I had. Any ideas as to how to influence that without, I can't take them to church?
You know something? I'm going to say something so basic, but love is probably the greatest spiritual gift you can give any child.
It's true.
And I watch my aunts. I was blessed to be able to pursue education and get out of poverty, but a whole 75% of my family wasn't. And I watch people that have nothing. I visit them, they come visit me. I watch their lives that have nothing. And the one thing I have now determined is that love, honestly, is spirit. And when you share your love with your grandkids and you call upon your spirituality and you just share that with them, where does my love come from? It's an endless well that comes from my belief. Those are the things that actually stay. Because I will share this with you that Jonah, I am a big believer, to be fair, because of my own journey and letting my son choose his. Now, we do take him with us to Chumsey, right? In fact, he's the one that got us into Chumsey. They used to have these church puppets that look like the Sesame Street puppets. And my boy was so in love with them that he would drag us there over and over. And so at the end, we were like, well, we've been here coming a year. We might as well just, make it our church home. It's a fantastic church. We love it. Excellent, excellent, excellent. There and wherever Father David Garcia preaches is where I am. But the truth is that he himself has grown up in a generation that doesn't necessarily see religion, the area of religion, the institution, of religion, as his way to spirituality. But I'll tell you what he knows and he feels is love, and he knows and he feels that he has to share love and respect and the values that we talk about as a family. Because I think sometimes with children, especially children of this young generation that has access to any answer they want, any question they have, the one thing they can't access is connection to you as a human being, as their grandmother, as someone who has that spirit to give them through love. That they can't get. That to me is what I think, never veer from that, because my son, that's where he's getting his foundation of spirituality. He sees how I say bless you to anyone around. He sees how I will sit down and say, even in this we have faith. Even through this we have faith. And I will love you no matter what. I will love you. I will love you. I will love you. And it's amazing to see that awakening in him, because at some point I think all children do start to think about what's bigger than myself. Up until now we take care of them and their world is here. But as they get older, they start to also see what is out there and what is the world connection. And the only foundation that I truly believe for my son, in which I'll give you this advice, is to be able to just freely love him and accept him. It builds faith. Because he now has an anchor. And he will then strive to be an anchor for someone else. And through that, you build faith, for my son at least. And that's my advice to you.
Thank you for that question, Amy, and thank you for your answer.
Of course. Thank you all.
Let's give Erica another round of applause. Up next, we have Mr. Howie. Come on, Howie.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.
Talk well.
All right. Ooh, deep breath. Thank you, Erica. What does a dyslexic, insomniac atheist do on a regular basis? stays up all night pondering whether or not there really is a dog. I slept very well last night because I know there's a God, but how I define God might be a little different than how other people define God. See, I define God as service to others. There is a beautiful Jewish concept called tikkun olam, that in Hebrew, translated to English, means repair the world. So I take that not as a suggestion, I take it as an edict, as an obligation, as a responsibility to repair the world. I came across a prayer last year during Rosh Hashanah services, the New Year service at my synagogue. And I was reading in the margins, and they have these additional readings or additional prayers. And this one happened to come. I'm a member of a conservative synagogue, but this happened to come. It was a quote from an Orthodox rabbi. You may have heard of him. His name was Menachem Schneerson. He was the head rabbi of the modern Lubavitch movement for the better half of the mid-1900s to almost 2000. He was a rabbi in Brooklyn, New York, and he was the leader of this Orthodox sect of Judaism. And his quote was simply this: if you see what's missing in the world and what's wrong in the world and a way to repair it, then you have found a piece of the world that God has left for you to repair. But if you only see what's bad and what's ugly in the world and no way to repair it, then it is you who needs repair. That was so profound for me that after 50-something years of doing community service and not really understanding why I do it, kind of clicked for me. And it's because we are left with this obligation to repair the world. Every single one of us that drove here today, that's wearing nice clothing, that has a phone, we're blessed and highly favored. We know the rest of the world doesn't have the same access that we do. And so when we're in a position to give a hand up, we have to give that. When we're in a position to receive a hand up, we're obligated to take it. And I think we've all been in both of those positions. So I'm reminded of this beautiful quote that I heard from a pastor. He said, "The service begins when the sermon is done." So in other words, you don't go to a synagogue or a mosque or a church for the sermon and for the service. The service actually begins once you leave the doors. Which reminds me of a different joke. So this kid goes up to his rabbi and says, "Rabbi, what are all these names on the wall with these little light bulbs next to them?" And the rabbi says, "Well, those are members of the congregation who are no longer with us." And the kid says, "You mean they left, Rabbi? They left the congregation?" "Well, in a way they did, but I don't know how to put this delicately, but they passed away." And the kid says, "Ooh, they died?" He goes, "Yeah, they did." Says, "Well, how come some of them have flags next to their names and some of them don't?" "Oh, well, those are the ones that died in service." He goes, "Oh, I see. Which service, Rabbi? Friday night or Saturday morning?" We all have a calling. Even though I'm Jewish, I went to a Catholic school in Laredo. I had a vocations teacher that asked me in 9th grade, "Howie, what's your calling in life?" I didn't understand what that meant back then. Later on, I came to realize, also listening to my Walkman, that other people called it a purpose or a mission or your why, right? Your purpose. And those of us that are fortunate find it. Those that don't kind of are aimlessly wandering around trying to figure out, is this all there is or is this all there was? That's my motivation. That's how I connect with God. It's what I tell my kids. And they said, "Well, how do you know there is a God?" I said, "How do you know that there isn't?" "Well, I don't see him." I said, "Good point." I said, "But for example, we're standing here in this church, or I tell them at my house, if I said to you, there must have been an architect, very talented, who designed this, nobody would take issue with that. Rex is an artist. If I say there must have been a great artist that put this artwork together, nobody would find that controversial. But why is it that when somebody says that this planet and all the plants and all the animals and all the human beings, each one of you and I, were created by some master orchestrator of the universe, all of a sudden that becomes controversial. And I think it's because God and this concept of God is inconvenient. Because if there is a God, then you're obligated to do something. If there isn't, you're like Southwest Airlines. You're free to move about the country, do whatever you want. But when you deal with this very heavy question of a creator and why this was created and why we are where we are and why sometimes bad things happen and why there are sometimes bad people who make bad things happen, becomes a very heavy question. But ultimately, there comes with a responsibility. It's why the proof that I need, those are the fingerprints that I see that God leaves all over the planet. And it's why, even though I can't prove to anybody, my kids included, that there is a God, I can't disprove that there isn't one. So I'll close with a very simple, uplifting story that, kind of ties into FaithLifts, which is what our topic for today. And, faith, I tell people, is not the absence of reason. It's a conclusion we come to after trials and tribulations and life and study, that we come to this conclusion that there must be a God. But how we believe and how we pray and what we believe is ultimately up to us and our perspective. So I leave you with this story. Rabbi has a class, the kids are 12 years old, and he says at the end of the class, and with that, I want you to remember one thing. You should thank God for all the good things that happen in your life. And with the same fervor and the same enthusiasm, you must thank God for all the bad things that happen in your life. With that, have a great weekend. Shabbat Shalom. See you all Monday. Kids all leave the classroom. One boy walks up to his rabbi. He says, Rabbi, he says, I get it. When I got my bicycle, when I got my skateboard, I thank God for all the good things that have happened. But how do I thank him for all the bad things that happened in my life? Rabbi says, look, I'm a very young rabbi, barely 30 years old. I learned that when I was your age, and I'm still dealing with that. So I have no idea how to thank God for all the good things that happened in my life. I'm just telling you what I've been taught. However, there's a very learned man who lives at the end of the town. I want you to go see him, and you should ask him that question because he'll be able to answer it. And so in those days, the further outside of the center of town you lived, the poorer you were. It's not like today, where you live in the Dominion, you're rich because you live far away. If you live close, you're like, ah. But anyway, so the boy sets out to go find this learned man and ask him this very important question. So he takes off walking and he goes past all the homes and out past the parks and past the city dump and the cemetery, and he comes across this one-room shack. Knocks on the door, nobody answers. Keeps knocking, nothing, but he's come a long way, so he's not leaving. Opens the door, he sees a man, probably like your aunt, 99 years old, sitting at a table, wooden table, studying by candlelight with his face in a book. And he says, excuse me, is your name Benjamin? The man looks up, he says, I'm sorry, I can't hear you, I'm almost deaf, can you speak up? And the boy says, is your name Benjamin? He goes, yes, I am, I'm Benjamin. He says, but come closer, I want to see you. My eyes are covered in cataracts, and so I can't see very well. I'm almost blind. And he comes up to the man. He sees that the man's face is covered in boils. And he says, son, why don't you sit down and let me get you a glass of water so you can ask me your question. And he says, well, I'd kind of like to ask my question and leave if that's okay. He says, sure, that's fine. He says, he goes, I'd offer you some food, but I'm very poor, so water's all I have. He goes, no, that's quite all right. He says, well, go ahead and ask me your question. He says, my rabbi says I should thank God for all the good things that happen in my life. And with the same enthusiasm and the same fervor, I'm obligated to thank him for all the bad things that happen in my life. And I don't understand that, and he couldn't explain it. So I'll ask you, how do you thank God for all the bad things that have happened in your life? And the man thinks for a bit. And he says, I'm sorry that you came all this way. I can't answer that question, you see, because nothing bad has ever happened in my life. Thank you all.
Wow. Thank you, Howie. Let me tell y'all something. We're going to all come and meet your rabbi, okay? We're going to have
I have one of my rabbi mentors here right now.
Wow. This is why we get to have fellowship afterwards in the CE building, so we can all make a line to talk to Howie and his rabbi. Okay? So I'm a little partial now. Thank you so much. If you have found a connection already to the first two stories we've heard, you are gifted. I want you to listen to connections, right? Gifted and lifted. Up next, we're going to have our third storyteller, our third pilot who's going to be landing her plane. Come on, Miss Wahida.
Thank you. Ooh, okay, can you hear me? Yes. Talk about two tough acts to follow. Yes. Okay, so I am going to take you down a very different path. You all probably have a mobile phone, right? We have Wi-Fi. Can you Google Chittagong? Chittagong. Chittagong.
Spelled again,
Chittagong. Chittagong, Bangladesh. Yeah, tiny little city in a tiny little country, way on the side of India, right? So in 1970, yes, at the risk of giving away my age, I was born in Chittagong, Bangladesh. When I was born, the country was preparing for a genocide. In 1971, at the age of 1, a toddler in my mom's arms, we then, as refugees, fled to Karachi, Pakistan. In Karachi, we rented an apartment, actually a room in someone's apartment, and that's where we survived from 1971 until 1978. My father, who would have had a leather tannery business in our family for 100 years, had to leave that business, which was really affecting him very badly. So he was excited when he received a letter from the government of Bangladesh saying, you can come back and you can claim this tannery, but here's the condition. You have to have a Bangladeshi partner. They're going to put down zero money, but they're going to be your equal partner. So my dad, of course, consulted with my mom, and they decided that, okay, we're going to still do it because we will then have had the family business there for 100 years. Big deal, right? We go back. 1978, I've now transitioned back to Bangladesh, again, another country, don't speak the language. Bengali is very different from Urdu, what I'm used to speaking at home. And in 1980, 81, again, the political climate was very bad. They did not want anyone that was not of Bangladeshi origin in that country. So here started another whole segment of war and kicking people out of the country and us becoming displaced again. So my father could foresee that happening, and he told my mom in 1981 that you take Wahida and you go to the USA. Go there and look for opportunities for us where we can move and we can start a business there. So at that time, $1 US was equal to 20 takas. So your airfare was 1,000 US, which was 20,000 takas. So between my mom and I, that's a lot of money back then, 40,000 takas. But we came to the US, we went to San Francisco, we went to Chicago. When we were in Chicago, we got a call from the minister who said, your husband, he said this to my mom, your husband has had a heart attack. And he's given a message for you, don't come back until you have gone to do what you went there to do. So in other words, he was telling her, I've had a heart attack, but don't come back because we can't afford for you to go back again, right? So at that point, we decided that no, okay, we've seen it all, we have to go back. We went back, 1981, my father passed away. His dying wish was for his children to be educated in the US. So after we buried him, we moved to the US. We moved to a small town called Talmadge in Ukiah, California, way north of San Francisco. So here I am, 11 years old, different country, different rules, different culture, going to junior high school. So I go, my first day to my class, I did not understand the locker system. Turning it so many different ways, just like I had to give up on that one. We still don't get it, right? So, and I was getting embarrassed thinking I was the only one who didn't understand this. Then I go into my classes, break, and I'm seeing a lot of PDA. Do we remember what that was? Yes. Yeah, public display of affection. I have never seen my parents hold hands. And here's all this, action happening in school, and I'm like 11, and I'm like traumatized by this. I come home, and I tell my brother and my mom, my brother's 4 years older than me, I said, don't girls get married at 14, 15? I think we can up it for me. I'm ready to get out. I want to just get married and be done with it. It took them more than a month to drag this out of me where I could actually even tell my brother that this is what's happening. Like, I'm so embarrassed. And I completely feel like an outcast. I'm made fun of because I dress like a teacher, and they make fun of me because I'm covered up, right? And then we ended up transitioning myself to a nice school, a school that was very much at home. That is a school where I felt that everyone respected each other. There was discipline, there was understanding. These were my people. You know what it was? A little Catholic school. So this little Muslim girl was like on cloud 9 in a Catholic school because these were my people. This is one of the reasons with Dawn and Wendy, we do so much interfaith work because we're really so much alike. And that's where that began. Long story short, we had issues with our business partner. We lost everything again, came to San Antonio in 1987. At the age of 17, had nothing. We brought cans of food that we were selling on the shelves of our store, and that is what we survived on. So when we talk about food insecurity, that's a very real thing. And at the age of 17, I was proud that I was a high school graduate. I wanted to go to college. I was top of my game, and here I am having to work, having to do 2 jobs to support the family. We had 1 car. My mother would drop my brother to his job at 5:30. She'd come home, I'd drop her to her dry cleaning at 6:30. I'd take the car, go open Steinmart. During lunch, go back, switch with my mom. This was our daily ritual on 1 car. At some point, I took a couple of buses to work. The reason I'm telling you all these stories is because imagine how many times you had to have faith without really knowing what faith was. So when I was talking to some high school students, they said, oh, so Miss, at 17, you knew that you had such strong faith and you knew things were going to work out. And I said, actually, no. I didn't. I was just a 17-year-old kid back in the 80s. All I knew is that I was a good person. I wasn't going to harm anybody. And I know that I have to let this float because eventually it will make sense. My daughter, in 1990, I married my husband, 32 years now, 3 kids. The eldest one is right here in Stone Oak, Reagan High School. Before high school, she was in Lopez Middle School. So she comes home from class one day and she says, if the teacher calls, I don't want you to panic, I've got this. No. And so I'm sitting there and I'm telling her, then I was like, something really, I can't say anything to her now, I wonder what's going on. The next day, she comes downstairs with a stack of papers, goes to school, comes back, and apparently what had happened is somebody in Lopez Middle School went to her and said, hey, Shaya, you know what we do with Arabian princesses like you? We cut their heads off. So this kid, at that young and tender age, decided to come home and take out some printouts and went to class the next day, put those papers on that table in front of that girl and said, I would educate myself first before you make comments like that. She went to the teacher. During break, she went to the principal and said, I want to start the multicultural club in this school. And she did. She then went on, and I take pride in this because she went on to then serve as the first Muslim president of a Jesuit university. In the genes, right? But faith has played so many roles in our lives that, it's very tricky because it can go upside down. It can go belly up at any moment if you don't have faith as a regular part of your life. So when he was saying, be grateful for the things, my aunt, Natarsha, who some of you have met, who passed away almost 10 years ago, she broke her hand, and I was 18 at that time. And when I went to see her, she said, thank God, shukr alhamdulillah, which means thank God. And I looked at her like she was crazy. Like, you're thanking God because you broke your arm? And her answer was the same. No, it's because that's all I broke. You know? The focus wasn't that, the focus was all of that didn't break. So as my children grow up, I always tell them that it's up here. It's work in progress, it's a continuous practice, just like we practice, whether we're playing tennis or yoga, any of it. Constantly change that mindset. Tell yourself, yes, but this is what's the good that came out of it. This is what ended up being a good thing for me, right? So we need to make sure we do that, and here I am, 2023, in San Antonio for a very long time, and proud to be here, proud to serve as the past chair of SoL Interfaith Center and do a lot of work in the city. I take pride in it, and I think it is important for us to know, if you walk away with one lesson from this, is that regardless of your faith, we have all come from the same place, and we are going to the same place.
Thank you. Yes.
Come here. I'm gonna hold you when this is the sentence that is my mantra. Faith means believing in advance what will only make sense in reverse. Think about that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes. Do we not need people like Wahida in our lives? And imagine, had we not been here today, those of us who don't know her might have passed up a wonderful opportunity. Thank you so much. Up next, we have our fourth. Nope, just kidding. We don't have a fourth yet. We have a break. How long is our break? 10 minutes. Okay, you all, take 10. In this 10 minutes, you have the restrooms on either side. Stretch your legs, take deep breaths, and come back prepared for our fourth and fifth stories. Thank you. Thank you, Wendy.
with anyone's mic, just hand them that one.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Hello.
How are you? Thank you. I'm so glad I came. This is wonderful. Yeah. Hi. Hello.
I think it's time. Yeah, because it's
We're
going
going to take them a while to get them back to the.
Good afternoon again. We are marching, marching to our seats. 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 If you all could return to your seats and get ready for Dr. Sook. She will be our fourth speaker for today, telling us her faith story. I would like to also remind you that there will be a reception immediately following this wonderful program, so we don't have to stop our fellowship. We can just put a pause, put a pin in it, and then move on so we can hear from Dr. Sook. I want to hear her story. It looks like she has an amazing story. I'm judging a book by its cover. She is going to come up as you all are taking your seats. And she is our fourth speaker for this afternoon. I love your liveliness. So keep that same energy as she gets ready to tell us. And remember, this is just putting a pin in the conversation, not stopping it, because we get to continue after in our reception in the CE building, right, Dr. Dawn? Yes. Okay. Without further ado, Dr. Sook.
Awesome. Thank you. If everyone would close your eyes for just a moment, I'd like to lead us in a breathing exercise, taking a nice deep inhale and exhale. And send some love to someone or something that you're truly grateful for. On your next inhale, you'll breathe in deeply, and as you exhale, you'll open your mouth, sigh out, sending out that energy into the world. You can open your eyes. Thank you. I'm a sick American. I promise I don't have COVID or I'm not contagious. I practice the faith of Sikhism. It's a religion based out of North India, not a sect of Hinduism and Islam as often mistaken in textbooks. It's its own religion and believes in one God, equity, equality, opportunity for all. But like some other millennials, when you see it in practice, it looks sometimes different, which causes you to question the religion. I grew up playing sports. I was an athlete, played basketball, football, and volleyball. What I learned, aside from having an amazing group of women support you in everything you do in life, I also got a lot of bad knees and ankles. And as a result, in college, I picked up yoga. And I had no idea what yoga would mean for me in my life and in my pathway in my faith. In our religion was founded in 1699 on those principles I shared earlier. But about 100 years ago, folks came together and said, if you follow these rules, you will be a better Sikh, or you will be a better person that will reach to God. And I didn't quite understand why me not being able to shave meant that that was going to make me a better human. And so as a teenager, you can imagine the trauma that came along with that when you're in high school in a different place that no one really understands your background. So as a result, I turned to pushing away from my religion because to me, it wasn't making me feel like a better person. And that's what I really wanted. So I became a teacher, and as a millennial, you also want to change the world, help each kid one kid at a time, or help all of our students one kid at a time. So I became a teacher. I went through my first year of teaching and experienced the most difficult thing I've ever had to do in my life. It didn't even compare to the taking 5 AP classes and playing sports and doing all of that. Teaching was something else. So, but I had great health care and never used it. But after my first year of teaching, I thought maybe I should go see the dentist. So I finally got to the dentist, I got my teeth cleaned, and as I walked out, I saw a yoga studio. And I happened to walk in, and they were starting a yoga teacher training program in a few weeks. And I thought, okay, I definitely need a side hustle, because when my paychecks were coming in, I realized teaching also doesn't pay very well. And I thought, what a great way to get a workout in, keep my body loose, all for the physical benefits, and then also make some cash. So I decided to enroll in this teacher training program. I had no idea what to expect. I walked in with my leggings. This was before Lululemon was a thing, you know. So I walked in with normal leggings and a t-shirt, ready to work out, and they handed me a paper and a book. And I was like, wait, I already graduated. I don't need to come back to school. But I tried to keep an open mind, and I took the experience in. We learned that yoga was initially found as a way to open up your body so you can meditate more. We learned about the power of breath. What we did at the beginning, which was actually a way for me to breathe, so I would be less nervous, but it works as a great strategy. But yoga and your breath is a metaphor for life. Because if you can breathe through the most challenging poses like headstands, handstands, which I did for the first time in my life, you can also breathe through the most difficult experiences you have in life. And then we learned about chanting. And the chanting that we did were actually phrases that came from some of my religions, some of other different religions, Buddhism, Hinduism. All of these religions have different chants, and they were actually all intertwined in the yoga practice. But hearing every single person in that room say things like Satanama and Vaheguru, which are phrases we grew up saying, made me realize that this is what our religion is truly about. It's not about the rules that we're expected to follow. It's about the connection and power in a room when you are all saying something together and driving towards the same goal, vision. Oftentimes, that's just presence and gratitude. So now, every time while I might joke and say that my religion is watching football and playing golf on Sundays, I know that every time I go into a yoga class and end with the light in me honors the light in you, that we are truly connecting. And each religion and faith has their own way of saying that, whether it's namaste, whether the Mayan culture, they say in Lakesh, which means I am you and you are me. We all have the same phrases, and so we should be using I used to think that religion is powerful when we use it in ways like this, to remember that regardless of the way we say something or the words that we use, our energy is all connected. The second thing that this experience taught me was that everything happens for a reason. That no matter, you could be going to the dentist's office and find something that completely changes your entire perspective and the way that you see the world. And if we can accept that everything happens for a reason, we can truly have contentment. Contentment not to be confused with complacency, but truly contentment and acceptance for everything that happens to the story that you shared. Whether it's good or bad, everything is your perspective. Everything happens for a reason. So make sure you go get your teeth cleaned. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Wow. Okay, y'all. Get your teeth cleaned. That's something that you did not think you were going to hear when you walked through the doors today was go get your teeth cleaned. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, you all, our fifth and final story will be coming from Rex. I am so excited to invite him here. As he comes up, I want you to continue thinking about the thread that is weaving all of these stories together for you, okay? And when he comes, after he's done, I'll come back up and we'll talk about it. Rex.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
First off, hi, y'all. I'm from Texas, so we can say that. My stock and trade is this stuff. This is a little painting it's older than our country. That was a gift. It's a ukiyo-e print, and I'm a painter. And so my profession is painting. Thank you so much. We have studios about, like a stone's throw from here at the Hausman Millworks, where I am pretty much every other day, but lately I've been traveling a whole lot. And my story has three parts. One which is cause and effect, right? Like something happens and then you have the choice to do something with it. But there's like 3 acts in this play of life. And it's pretty shocking, the first one. Wendy actually has asked me to share this a bunch of times. I'm like, no. I got beyond it. I'm not going to talk about that again because it's super uncomfortable. Don't get shot. It sucks. Like, I really wouldn't recommend it. And I actually use humor to kind of like pass off kind of really crappy experiences. But with that being said, I gave this story to a private dinner in New York, maybe in October, and I left everything I had in my hands in the cab, and a miracle, I got it back. So God is good, and I'll go into like a little bit of a story mode, but I'm really going back to the night of a very traumatic incident in my life. Once we get past the traumatic incident, there's a second act, which is like the trauma hits again while you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And the third is sitting under a tree, which is my recent paintings, which is Cathedral in the Trees, which that's an awesome live oak out there. If y'all have not seen old trees, that's a really old one. And in Texas format, oak trees actually, in particular live oaks, share root systems. So you'll never only see one live oak, you'll always see a group. Well, you all know this. You're all nodding. What am I saying? So into the story, which is heavily based on the Lord's Prayer. I'm a Christian. We go to Max Lucado's church and Curry Creek Baptist, which is pretty cool. Although the hellfire and brimstone gets to be a bit much sometimes. So I got a full scholarship to school, Savannah College of Art and Design, whoop whoop, an amazing school. And went there for undergraduate. I started at UTSA. I'm dyslexic, literally. I was a business major that was getting a 2.75 average, and I'm like, this dog won't hunt. I'm a pragmatic person as well. And I went into Nestor Reyes' office and was like, Nestor, this sucks. Like, I'm trying so hard, and all my professors are like, you try so hard, but you just don't get it. And I'm like, I get the business stuff, but I just don't get the numbers, man. Like, I don't build widgets. I'm a painter. Like, well, go be an art major. And I got a 4.0 first semester at UTSA and Dean's List. You tell a dyslexic that slugged it through school, always thinking you're a moron on the short bus, you know, like, you get a 4.0 in Dean's List. Here's a letter from the president. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This is amazing. And so in that story, learn what you love to do in life, and you'll never work a day in your life. And I really, to everybody, find what you love to do and then figure out what to do, because it'll help everybody. It'll help humanity, even when you see the worst of humanity, to loop it back around. So go from UTSA, get a full ride to Savannah College of Art and Design. Really super cool, changes my life. Go into the world, come back to San Antonio, start a business with my family with no running water or electricity in our family's old buildings. Now we have 63 studios and 85 artists. It's totally nuts. I get a graduate degree, and I get a full scholarship for that. I'm walking home, you know, I go to the studio. I go from the studio to my apartment, studio to my apartment, studio to my apartment. I'm never afraid because I can see out my window where Forrest Gump was filmed in Savannah, Georgia. Like, there's the bench, there's the box of chocolates. I'm cool, man, whatevs. So I'm coming back from the library on the little bus because I don't have any money. Thus, I'm a full scholarship student. I'm broke. And I didn't bring my car. I just said, I'm just going to walk this off, which is a constant struggle. And that night, I get off the little bus at the little Kroger, and I notice this dude just kind of walking kind of like this. And I'm like, that's weird, you know? I'm like, man, I just got to get home. So I've lived all over the world. Brooklyn, Hong Kong, Berlin, New York, Italy, Spain, everywhere. I know as an artist, you're always chasing after cheap rent. So, like, you're always kind of in the sketch areas. How I remember you said not the outside, but the inside. That's where we are, baby. And so I get, you know, I go through Forsyth Park, and it's just a night like any other night. You know, it's beautiful. There's people playing. There's parkour kids running around doing stuff they're not supposed to do. And I'm like, okay, whatever. There's people here. I'm going to walk home. But then on the corner of my eye, this dude just starts walking towards me. I'm a pretty big dude, man. I'm from Texas, you know? So I'm like, whatever. Like, let me just get beyond him. So I get beyond him, but he walks faster, and he throws his shoulder into me. And he totally hits me, like, broadside like this, and I back off. And I notice he's got a 9mm pulled. And I just go, that got real fast. You know? I'm just like, hi? He goes, follow me. I'm like, dude, I'm not following you anywhere. And I say a prayer. I say, Lord, help me. And in my mind, it says, do not follow him. Do not give him your wallet. Get into the light. And I'm like, what does that mean? And then he goes, I mean, when a dude's got a 9mm pointed at your chest, it kind of sucks, you know? And he goes, give me your wallet. I'm like, I need my ID, bro. I'm going to get shot. Like, you just know. Like, if you talk to, and I've talked to police officers, I've talked to vets, wounded vets, people with amputees, and they're all like, oh, you know when something's coming at you. I'm like, dude, in that guy's eyes was death, bro. It was not give me your wallet. And so I'm a little, sorry, I get a little weirded out because I literally go back there. So then, he's there and he goes, just give me your wallet, man. And I go, dude, I'm not going to give you my wallet. I'm not going to follow you. This is a bad idea for you. You need to go, and I need to go. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to stall. And it's amazing how pragmatic you become when someone's pointing a gun at you. I see in the corner of my eye these two lights of like a car, and I'm like, if I just stall, those lights coming at me are going to like freak him out. He's going to realize what he's doing, and he's going to run. Well, the car doesn't move. The gun is still pointed at my chest, and I'm still sitting here going like, what, bro? That thing was supposed to shine us. This ain't working out. And then it gets really messed up. The dude looks away from me, and I'm like, oh, I could grab his gun. Bad idea, really bad idea. Don't do that. Just hold your ground and just hope it all works out. Then a voice out of a bush goes, do him. That is the darkest thing I have ever heard in my life. Home Slice looks at me, pops a 9 right in my leg. I just go, you just shot me. Who shoots someone? And then it's like his action responded to his brain. His eyes got about the size of dollar bills, and he just ran. And I went, okay, my leg kind of isn't working, but I got to get out of here. And I remember the third part of the voice, which was, get into the light. And so I walk on like a compound fracture. Looks like a hand grenade went off in my leg. Blood's everywhere. It totally sucks. And I just fall back on my backpack. And I'm like, where did all the people go? Like, there were people everywhere. There's no one here. And I say, all right, Lord, here's the Lord's Prayer. And as you kind of feel the life oozing out of you, it sucks. You know, I'm like, well, it's going to suck from my mom and my dad, my brother. I'm going to heaven because I'm cool with Jesus. But, you know, it's not all bad. And then the car that was supposed to shine me pulls up, and this window rolls down. And these two dudes go, what happened? I said, I've been shot. And then they just roll up the window and casually drive off. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that isn't normal. And then at the same time, this gray Oldsmobile pulls up right as the truck car's pulling off. This one pulls up. And this guy jumps out as clear as day with blue shorts, orange shorts, orange flip-flops, blue and white checkered shirt. And the dude goes like, can I help you? I'm like, no, bro, I'm pretty sure I'm dying. And he goes, can I help you to the curb? And I'm like, no, just don't move me, man. Like, my leg's really blown away. And he goes, I said, can you just call police and ambulance? He goes, hey, listen, man, don't worry. I've already called the police and ambulance. They won't be here when I get here. I won't be here when they get here, but you're going to be okay. I'm like, whatever. And then right there, the next door neighbors of mine had heard the gun blast, and they ran down the stairs, and it was a retired nurse and an EMT doctor. And they go, you've been shot in a very specific place. I'm like, okay. And he goes, you need to tourniquet your leg. What's your name? And I said, my name's Rex. And so he tourniquets my leg, and then the EMTs kind of pull up, and they jump out, and they go, hey, man, like, you're in a pretty tough spot. Can we lift you? I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm dying. But, you know, I'm cool. They're like, you're really chill. I'm like, is it going to help if I yell? And they're like, not really. And so I remembered working on my thesis, which was what happens when the worst thing in the world happens? You crack a joke. And I said, guys, not to make it light, but you know who designed the stretcher gurney? And they're like, what? I'm like, Charles and Ray Eames, man. They're furniture designers. 3rd floor, Savannah College of Art and Design, Stacks. It's part of my thesis. And they're like, are you kidding me? I'm like, nah, man, this is great. They're like, you're a SCAD kid. And that's really important that they didn't know I was a gang member. And so they put me in the ambulance, and we're sitting there, and they're like, you're really chill, bro. I'm like, yeah, man, what am I going to do? And I said, do you guys mind if I said the Lord's Prayer? And the guy was Catholic next to me. He goes, yeah, man, I'm Catholic. And the other dude goes, Jeff, you're Catholic? Are you serious? And he's like, yeah, man, I'm a Christian too, bro. He's like, are you serious? I've been in this thing for like 3 years. I didn't know that. He's like, yeah, man, cool. I said, guys, can we say the Lord's Prayer? You know, and they're like, yeah, sure. All right, cool. Yeah, we're set. So I say, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us our day, our daily bread, and forgive us our sins as we forgive those that sin against us. And I stop, and I go, guys, what? Aren't you going to finish? I was like, I got to forgive the guy. Forgive who? The dude that just shot me. What? Yeah, man, the guy that just shot me. If I'm going to die, I'm going to, like, go and cool with, like, God's grace, so I forgive the guy. They're like, you mean to tell me you just forgave the guy that just shot you that you don't know, and you're sitting on this gurney, you may not make it? I'm like, yeah, dude, what else am I going to do? Can I pass out now? And they're like, yeah, sure. So, you know, I'm out. Then I wake up, and you think it's what's my time like? Am I? 2 minutes. Okay, cool. So, like, I wake up, and I just see these lights go, toom, 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 toom. I look to the left, and there's a sheriff. I'm like, sir? And I see, like, you know, the sheriff. I'm like, did I just get shot? He's like, yes, son, you did. I'm like, oh, that sucks. So this is real. He goes, yeah, that's pretty real. I'm like, okay, cool. Am I in the hospital? Yeah, you're in the hospital. What's your name? What's your phone number? They ask you all these things to keep your brain going. You know, I'm like, can you please stop asking me my name? So we get into the little dealy bob, the little room, and I can't call my mom and my dad. You know, I can't call anybody. And I say, hey, can I have a sheet of paper and a pen? And they're like, why? I'm like, I'm an art student. So I draw a fish, I draw a cathedral, I draw a horse, I draw a tiger for my brother, and then I draw the guy's face. And they're like, that's a great portrait. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm a scholarship student. It's what I do. And then I hand wrote the whole account. I said, if I die, the last things on earth I want to leave here is art for my family and what happened. And they're like, okay. And so right there, they kind of wheel me out again, and I go into this little room with the big tubey thing. What are they called? Who's a doctor? You're a doctor. MRI, yeah, the MRI thing. And I'm in the tubey thing, and this lady goes, she was this really big African-American lady. Honey, you believe in Jesus? I'm like, yes, ma'am, I do. She goes, good, because there's an angel holding on to that bullet. It is about 1/8 of an inch from your femoral artery. I'm like, I don't know what that is. Is that a bad thing? Very bad. Don't move, honey. I'm like, okay, cool. So I just say, all right, whatever. Then they pick me up. They put me back. They find out it's not fatal. Like, it's not, because what they apparently worry about is like a bone shard severing your nerve, your femoral, and then you're gone, man. Like, there's nothing they can do. And so they rationalized and said, okay, cool, he's not in bad state. You can call your mom. So I call my mom. Wait till you hear this. This is just fantastic. Hey, Mom. Hey, honey, God, it's like 11 o'clock. And hey, don't worry about me. I'm okay. I'm in the hospital. Why are you in the hospital? Just don't worry. I've been shot, but I'm okay. What? You've been... And then the nurse crams her thumb in the bullet wound because she thinks I'm bleeding out. I got to go by. You know, my poor mother jumps out of bed and goes like, what has happened to Rex? Can't call me back because my cell phone's dead. I called her on the nurse's phone. They're on lockdown. Blood's going everywhere. And then finally they kind of sedate me, and the nurse is just crying. I'm like, why are you crying? She goes, you're so nice. I'm like, what do you mean I'm so nice? She goes, you haven't cried. You haven't cussed at anyone. You just keep saying the Lord's Prayer. I forgot there was a God, and you just keep talking to all these people about this Lord's Prayer. I need to go to church tomorrow. I'm like, yeah, you do. And so she said, I think I am. And so then as I get wheeled away, go to sleep, wake up, I go into the surgery, and I see all the doctors are there. And what's my time like? Cool. 7 minutes, baby. I get in there, and I say to the docs, I'm like, hey, docs, I know you're about to do the Top Gun thing. And they're like, Top Gun thing? What do you mean? I was like, when I was a kid, I used to go into surgery for my eye. You put the mask on me, I think it's like Maverick and Top Gun, you know? And they're like, just before that, can I say the Lord's Prayer? And they go, yeah, oh, man, that's really cool. You're a Christian? I said, yeah, I'm a Christian. The other dude over there, hey, dude, you're a Christian? I didn't know that. Yeah, I am. The other dude in the little... Are you a Christian? Are you serious? Yeah. Hey, guys, do you mind if we all say the Lord's Prayer? I think it's in a higher power. So we all say the Lord's Prayer. I knock out, and that's the rest of the story. But on part 2, there are angels in there for real. And their eyes are how you tell. They're very, very blue. And the Oldsmobile that stopped didn't exist. So And then I have 4 accounts that said it did through other people years later. So I only got through the first one. Sorry, I'm really rough at this because I haven't talked about it in like 7 years, so I get a little weird, but there it is. Lord's Prayer.
So much. I'm just glad he's here to tell his story and unite people through the Lord's Prayer. Wow. So, our 5th and final story for today. Thank you so much. I wonder what the common thread you found in these 5 stories was. We're scheduled to end at 3:30. We will not stay until 3:30, but I want to hear if you would like, and if this is okay, tell us, and you can just call out right from where you are, a common thread. What is the thread that you heard in these 5 stories? Faith lifts. Something bigger than you. Connection. It comes from inside. She had an outrageous belief. Hope. Yes.
Nasha mentioned her aunt. Well, Wahida mentioned her aunt Nasha. I returned Nasha's books. I was a young Catholic sister teaching spirituality. Here was a Muslim in my class. I really hadn't known a Muslim before. I was a young Catholic sister teaching spirituality. Here was a Muslim in my class, Nasha. I really hadn't known Muslims before. She kept a diary. It was some of the most beautiful spirituality that I had ever read, and she opened my heart to the many paths of spirituality. Now you have her books, Wahida.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Any other connections that we want to make to the 5 stories that we've heard this afternoon? Yes. Courage. Belonging. Light. Just keep moving forward. Faith makes you resilient. Anything else? There are as many ways to connect with God as there are people. Hello. A faith legacy. Yes, I write about the legacy or inheritance of faith a lot. God surprises. I love this. Anybody else?
I'd like to comment on Rex's story. One of the things that comes out of this to me in particular is, we had some discussion about bad things and why do bad things exist in the world. And my experience has been that often really good things come out of bad things. It's like if it weren't for that bad thing, this really good thing would not have happened. And Rex is a good example of that, where he was finishing his master's thesis, and it was all these really dark paintings, very dark. And when he had recovered enough to start painting again, it became extremely colorful. And I think that's one of the things that's really made a huge difference in his artwork, is it's very appealing in this very colorful art that he presents. And so that's an example where a bad thing, being shot, has turned out to be a good thing.
Thank you for sharing that, Paul. Thank you so much. So this is all for the purpose of uniting us. We believe that we serve a creator, or we were created by a being who is meant for us to be connected. And I think one of the biggest lies we have told ourselves as a society is that we are supposed to be separate, that we are individual, that we are to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps, and if you have no boots, that's your fault. That is just a lie. If you came in this building feeling alone or alienated or lonely, my hope is that you aren't leaving that same way. I hope that you have found yourself in one of these stories today. And I challenge you before you leave here to connect with one of the storytellers and let them know that their story has landed in your life. May you forever be changed by the stories that you have heard today. May your lives never be the same. As you go, may the peace that you could not enter with leave with you. May the hope that had escaped you leave with you. May the courage that calls upon you daily when you open your eyes, may you meet that courage as you move forward, as you put one foot in front of the other, as you revive your faith, as your faith lifts you, may you be led from one person to another person. May you realize that you are human and the person who is sitting beside you is just as human. And the one who has offended you is just as human. And the one who you will offend is just as human as you are. Go in peace and meet us in the CE building. We ready, Dawn? In the CE building. And before you go, I just need to say that the pastor of this church is here. And so if you want to say hey to him, just wave at us and say hello. Just say hey to Dries. Thank you all so much. Wendy, do you have words? Wendy's coming with words.
Quick words. Thank you to Natarsha. Now you know why after the first iteration of FaithLifts, the request was, oh, we have to have Natarsha back. She's such a wonderful host. Thank you to Erica Prosper Nurnberg, to Howie Nestel, to Wahida Kara, to Suk Kar, to Rex Hausman. Thank you, University Presbyterian, SoL Center, Interfaith San Antonio Alliance, good hearts everywhere who are seeking the light together. Thank you all.
I had to stop it right now.